Hi, beautiful one. Rose Candela here, and today I'm going to talk to you about the importance of death in the creative process. So, what in the world am I talking about, right? Death is one of the subjects that in our culture, as it stands today, is pretty taboo. We still don't really want to talk about death or the things that come up from feeling emotions from somebody dying or something that we love dying. And the interesting thing, which I know you know, but I'm going to say it here, is that we will all die. It's literally something we all will experience. So why don't we talk about it? There are a lot of reasons why. I think that in general right now we have a framework of secularness in our society, which can be good or bad, however you want to look at it. But with that is a lack of spiritualism, is a lack of connecting to the rituals and the knowing that death is a cycle and a part of our everybody's life, and it's okay, right? So here's how we can deal with it. It's not really common to discuss this in our life right now. So I want to talk about it with a couple of ways to look at it. One being that it is inevitable and it is something that we all experience, but we don't have to necessarily dance with the like a person dying feeling to get comfortable with death, right? We can look at the seasons, which if you're new here, I talk about the seasons and cycles of life quite a bit. But we can look at seasons and transitions in seasons to be a death and a rebirth, or death and birth in general. Like a tree, right? The leaves that come down, and what we are approaching here in the Northern Hemisphere as the autumnal equinox, the autumnal season, that the leaves decay and fall off and die in order to nourish the soil and ground by the trees, so then it can become bigger and bigger and bigger, right? That is a type of death. That's why I think in some ways, besides the extreme cold and the darkness of winter, we have a hard time of dealing with it as a culture too, because it is an inwardness. Death creates an inwardness that is against the extroversion of our culture in general, right? So being with the fact that death happens, but it can also be looked at as a beginning of something else, is a beautiful way to approach it. I'm doing this because I feel like looking at our life as the circle of life, right? Like a little Lion King reference there, that it helps me. And it helps me to know that things transform. They don't necessarily sloth away. So why are we talking about this right now in terms of creative process? I was thinking about this today on my walk and preparing for this video, and thinking about how important it is to let go of our materials, right? I want to share something with you. I've got these new crayons that are part of my mentoring and my making and mentoring sessions that are coming up for my clients, right? I'm sending out new materials, and I also bought some for myself to use. And look how perfect that is, right? That perfection is going to transform. This perfect little material, this medium, is going to be added to a painting, something like this, and change. And in a way, it's gonna die from this perfect form to become something else that you experience, that you do, that you feel, and that brings you present to the moment, right? So creating is an act of destruction, and in that destruction, there's the release, there's the death, there's the sloughing off, there's the letting go, there's the the trust of our senses that really informs what we do next as creators, right? So whether or not you work with me in my making and mentoring sessions and actually are like, we are doing art together to get to some answers that you may have inside of you to the questions that percolate in our session, or whether you are creating dinner or trying to figure out what's next for your business or creating content every week for your audience, there's this process of like taking the information from wherever it starts, our brain, and I'm gonna go ahead and venture and say our brain, and like letting it go into your finished product, and knowing that that's kind of a death of the of it being this thing that's energizing you, right? Because sometimes we have ideas, and I think part of the process of getting clear about our ideas is being okay with them not being in us anymore, and then taking action on them, right? So I'm gonna reframe that a little bit and say that I hear a lot from people that ideas are hard to get out of them. And I think it's in part because we fear death. We fear the transformation that can happen from our ideas because we don't know. We don't know, right? So that goes back to this idea of secularism in our society as a whole. And when we don't have a framework of like what happens when someone dies, that can be hard, right? I'm not saying that you have to, but if you have an idea that there's something greater at play, it will bring you comfort because then you don't have to figure it out. So when the material transforms from being this perfect little packaged thing into the way it will look on a piece of paper, it has potential to be unknown and to be something different than just yours, which is so beautiful, right? That's a way to look at death, y'all. It's not necessarily a loss, even though it is. And I'm not saying that when people die or when you let go of a phase of your life, like going from maiden to mother, that there's not sorrow, that there's not those real feelings that bring you down and inward. Those are true. I have felt them on different levels in different ways. But the truth of the matter is, as well, through those feelings, something can bubble forth. Some way of experiencing the world differently will come from that death. Okay, loves, let me know. What do you think when people talk about death? How do you feel? It's pretty big, right? Let me know.